This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. I'm so pleased to be speaking with Rachel Bloom about Death. Let me do my special. How are you, Rachel?
I'm doing great. I was just doing an interview before you, and the Ring camera went off. And I went to mute it, and I wiped out in front of the camera. And so hopefully this has similar hijinks.
I wouldn't expect anything different from you. I'm a big fan of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which we'll talk about later. But when I found out I had the chance to interview, I had not actually seen this special. So I just had a chance to watch. And I'm very excited I did because I don't watch a lot of stand-up, but whenever I do, I'm always very happy. And I also appreciate that there's an additional sort of layer to this with some drama. And I will note before I ask you a question, finally, that my wife works as an end of life consultant. And so I'm always in a space where I'm totally okay with talking about death and familiar with that. Where some people are like, that sounds awful. Why does she do that? And there's obviously a different way to approach this kind of thing.
I love that. I mean, I've met death doulas, I've met end of life hospice workers in doing the show, and I have such a respect for people like your wife doing that because it's necessary and we don't want to talk about it, but everyone dies. And that's amazing that she does that.
Thank you. I mean, I love the intersection of humor and just the starkness of like, there are some real fears here, especially with, having a child and an animal and all that. Did you know that this is something you wanted to talk about, or it really materialized in the way that it plays out in the show, which is that you had all these jokes and were just like, I can't escape these feelings?
No, it's the way it played out in the show. I had a completely different special that I was planning, and at the time when show business was in a better place, I had had straight up offers for specials. This was in, 2018, 2019, and so I was developing that. And then the world exploded and show business changed, but I still had this looming offer of a special. And then Adam died, and I was in my office, which had turned into my baby's playroom, which is a metaphor. I was playing with her at 5 a.m. and I was looking at this whiteboard of jokes where it was like, cum tree, um, pussy joke. And I was like, this is so stupid. None of this matters anymore. And so that's what inspired it is this idea of what is the role of stupidity and silliness, and then the idea that death is this heckler who comes in and just fucks everything up.
Yeah. I think that's very, very powerful. And I think it just is such a delight that sometimes we can be in the middle of something that's just so funny. And then all of a sudden something serious happens, or you're at a funeral or somewhere else and something funny happens and it just doesn't feel right that it should. But, we don't get to choose these things. And I love the flow of the special that it just sort of goes back and forth between that. And doesn't that, even though, you end with a laugh, obviously you don't necessarily leave feeling warm and good about yourself. You leave thinking about things, think, well, I enjoyed that, but I'm going to come back to this a lot.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's part of it is I think the middle ground is, and we say this at the end of the special of how do you acknowledge death but continue to live? And that's the middle ground I do think we should be living in is don't forget death exists, but on the other hand, don't ruminate over it. You have to just make space for both of the things. And death can be very funny. I had a friend who was, this is not in the special, but he was dying of cancer, and he kept making a joke that he wanted to do a game show where he got to choose his wife's next husband. And I was like, that's so fucking funny. And he didn't film the show, but he was like, that would be such a weird game show where it's like just the saddest match game.
Well, I do think that this is not, I wouldn't say a trend, but I have been seeing, dying for sex obviously is something that encounters that. And I don't know if you've seen the film Andre is an Idiot, that was at Sundance.
No, not
Uh,
yet.
have you heard of it?
No, you know what? I weirdly haven't, but now I got to see it.
Yeah, somebody who finds out that he has this diagnosis and just sets out to look back at his life, and he knows he's dying, and he's like, "Why did I not go for this again? Why did I not get checked?" And that's the whole premise of it. And I think it's wonderful because I imagine with this special, a lot of people were excited to see you, but some might have initially been turned off by the idea that, death is in the title. And even just starting and realizing that Did you have that experience and hear that kind of feedback from people?
Yeah, especially when I was trying out the show and death wasn't in the title. It was like Rachel Bloom's just gonna fuck around, where people didn't know what they were getting at all. Yeah, people ended up getting on board, but I think it was what some people didn't buy into. Um, Having death in the title hopefully uh warned people this is not going to, there's going to be a twist to this. I still had a heckler in Boulder who was like, tell a joke. I don't like this. I mean, he was very drunk, which was very unpleasant.
What is the process of adapting a stage show like this for a film special?
A lot of it is what is information that we can give through film that we couldn't do on stage. And so, like that voicemail in the beginning, that took the place of a bunch of exposition that I had in the stage show. And that's something you couldn't really do in the stage show because my character was discovering this all in real time. So that was interesting. Um, and then it's just a matter of how do you capture a stage show that's also this one act play. So it's not just typical comedy special capture. And Seth Barish, who directed it, who directs all of Mike Birbiglia's work, there was an added challenge of we also need to cover death in the audience and we need to do overs. And then we need to do overs when death is in the audience and when death is on stage. And so that was also the challenge of how do you capture that on a pretty nimble, on a pretty slim budget.
I also am always impressed by the number of songs that appear in any of your projects. And after watching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, obviously knew this was something. Do you start like do you think in songs and then you write material? Like what is the order in which those come to life?
It's a mix. I think that the Rainbow Bridge song started as stand-up material and then it became a song. Because in a way, comedy songs are just it's another way to do stand-up, right? It's another way to observe and communicate comedic ideas. Um, Spookiest, Scariest Ghost was an idea that I'd had for a long time. That I'd thought about it even on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, actually, of and I've had this idea for a while that just in general, with all of these scary movies or even alien movies, the alternative is so much scarier of nothing. So that's something that I've been wanting to write about, especially in song, for a while. Um, so it depends. And then I think I knew that I wanted a culminating idea to end the show. And then I was like, well, we're doing a musical, it should be a song. But there were versions of the show where I just said, I'm my daughter's dog, and I didn't do the song. And that also worked.
Well, on the note of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I really enjoy that. I think it's such a fantastic show. When I mentioned to someone I would be talking to, they're like, ask, where can we see this now? Because it's not on Netflix. Like, where are we going to be able to see this at any point in the future?
Apple, here's what I know. Right now, I think if you belong to Apple TV Plus, you can get it for free on Apple TV Plus, and then it's just you buy episodes on Amazon and iTunes, which is the way it used to be. I think streaming got us all very complacent with the thing that I want to watch should be streaming on a service that I already pay for. But I remember I caught up on Lost. I mean, this is, 15 years ago, by just like, you buy the episodes on iTunes. So it is available. You just have to buy individual episodes, which is not sexy, but Crazy Ex went off the air went off Netflix a month before my special came out, and that wasn't on purpose. It was because the CW had this bulk deal with Netflix to have a bunch of shows on there for I think it was 5 years. Uh, so it is what it is, but you can watch it. It's there. All the episodes are available. You just I can't say it's like streaming on Paramount Plus or whatever, even though it theoretically should be because the CW's was at the time co-owned by CBS and Warner, so it should either be streaming on Max or I don't know. I don't work in streaming sales.
I was like, isn't it on CW Seed? And everyone was like, I don't think that's a thing anymore. I don't know if
I
that still
don't think
exists.
RIP CW Seed.
Well, I know that you have done certain, reunions and other things with Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Do you plan to do more things like that in the future?
Yeah, yeah, I want to do something to celebrate our 10 year. It's because this year is actually 10 years since the pilot aired, and so we'll have various things, things like that. It's just a matter of there's some stuff with my schedule I have to figure out, and I don't want to plan something and get people excited and then have to cancel. But yes, I mean we all talk as a cast constantly. Um, we definitely want to do something.
Well, on the subject of reunions, I really enjoyed the first season of Reboot and was sad to see that that didn't move ahead. Did you have a sense, from working with everyone of what would have been next for your character in the theoretical season two?
No, I know that there are some scripts, and I I think it's really sad for Steve to think about those scripts. Like there are some season two scripts, so I actually have no idea. I don't know, and I keep meaning to ask him to send me the scripts, but then I'm like, but then I would also just get really sad. That was just bad timing. I think we just fell because a lot of people I feel like a lot of people watched it, and I think it just fell in this time when, it was 2023. It was the beginning of this crunch and budget cuts. And I think if we'd popped more with fancy awardsy things, we would have gotten another season. I think it's like a choice now between like you're either this like big fancy award show sweeping all the things, or you're getting unbelievable numbers. And I think we just fell in the middle of that, unfortunately. And I think if we'd premiered, this is like, if I feel like if we'd premiered a year earlier, we would have gotten a second season, but that's a very uneducated guess. Who the fuck knows what's happening in Hollywood anymore? It's wild.
I feel like it's like the more relaxing version of the studio that, could be a good, like, you watch that, you're like, this is real, but I'm stressed out. And you watch Reboot, you're like, okay, this is a little bit more fun, I'm still enjoying it.
I fucking agree. It's funny, they always tell you don't write about show business. Whenever you pitch, they're like, no one wants to read about show business. The studio's huge. I mean, I don't know if anyone outside of Hollywood's watching. I don't see the numbers, but in my circle, it's massive. And so I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to anything anymore.
Well, not on the subject of TV, but I was at South by Southwest, I think now it was probably 7 years ago for Most Likely to Murder,
Yeah.
which I really enjoyed. And I think that was a lot of fun also because I think for you, I wouldn't really call that a comedic role. Like it's sort of you had one of like the straighter parts in that. I know that there's obviously family connections and other stuff involved in that film, but do you like doing that kind of thing, playing it, especially like also on Julia, playing a little bit more serious?
Oh, yes. Yes. I think that people see me as like, oh, well, she's going to want to write and create her own stuff. No, no. I love stepping on a set and not having to produce or write the thing. I put myself on tape for dramatic roles all the time. I've gotten close on some things. Like people, I think there's this idea of, oh, well, you probably don't audition. And I think a lot of people do say, well, I'm offer only because it's a pain in the ass to audition, but you lose out on roles and even potential roles if you don't audition. So yes, I'm available for any roles that you want me to do, Hollywood. I'm very versatile and I'll cut my hair.
Well, you mentioned a couple of upcoming projects, et cetera. Is there anything that you can talk about at this point?
No, it's a bunch of stuff that's like up in the air that hopefully I'll know more about in the next like month or two. Um, but I want I want there to be a thing.
Me too. Me too. Well, what are you watching these days? What have you seen recently on TV that you really like?
I mean, the studio is great. I just started watching Overcompensating. It's great. Uh, what have I those are the two that stick out to me. And then whenever we have time, my husband and I are perpetually trying to catch up on Top Chef, which is our relaxing. There's nothing better than eating dinner while watching Top Chef, but now that we have a kid, we can only watch Top Chef after she goes down, and so we don't have the same eat dinner at 6 and watch Top Chef, but that's still a wonderful escape we have.
I like that. Well, I hope to hear soon about a number of your projects coming to fruition and also to see you in some random dramatic role where I never would have expected it. So I'm very excited about that.
I would like that too.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Have a wonderful day.